There are enormous numbers of people who consume left-leaning political content who do not know how to participate in a conversation without criticism. There are a lot of people who genuinely do not comprehend how to interact with content without criticizing it. And so everything that these left-leaning creators say gets criticized, but also they get held to impossible standards.
All right, troops, this is what you've been preparing for your whole life. It's time for Operation Snuggly Blanket, because Steve Boots needs a fucking hug. To be clear, there will be no fucking in the hug. You're probably all grown-ups or grown-up adjacent, so you know how to say nice things like, I just want to say you're doing a great job. I have no notes. I think you offer something unique and essential to the Canadian media landscape. Or, I am jealous of your beard and or your charming giggle. Remember, kind words do not need to be qualified. An example of something that is not helpful would be, I like your beard, but I think that you should do videos dressed up as a furry. You're allowed to want things. People don't always need to know what you want, though. You see, Steve has attained a level of success. On YouTube, he has 52,000 followers. On TikTok, he has, let me go look this up. Holy fuck, I'm a failure and no one should ever love me. I'm not going to even look at his numbers on Twitch. Of course, with great success comes chronically online people who learned the word deconstruction and took it as a sign from God above that they need to be assholes. Now, someday, I'll make a video about the time I did a deep dive into the common psychological root causes for the worst behaviors in humanity that inspire Law & Order SVU episodes. But the short version of that story ends in the statement that the need for control over another person must be necessary before you get to all the stuff that nobody wants to hear. When I learned that, it fundamentally changed the way that I look at other people and the way that I treat other people and what I will accept from people who want to interact with me. Because the fact is, the need to control is on a spectrum, but every place on that spectrum is awful. What about parents who want to protect their kids? Protecting your kids is not the same as controlling your kids. Saying, Junior, we don't touch the stove element when it's hot, isn't the same as controlling. Even grabbing their wrist and emphatically saying no for the purpose of what I'm talking about is not controlling, because the root motivation isn't your desire to control. It's to protect. Now, a need for control and normal protective behavior from the outside can look the same, but they come from a different place. And someone who grows up in a controlling home is going to be the one who, when you're volunteering with a youth group and the kids are horseplaying and one is holding the door shut while everyone else freezes outside, and you put your hand on their upper arm and you say, hey man, I need you to stop doing that because you're going to break the door, the kid then responds by shoving you away in pure panic before immediately getting embarrassed and running away. And then your heart breaks when you realize what caused that. So why tell that story? Steve isn't a child, and adults are fair game, right? Well, we may, as life continues, develop an adult shell. We may learn to reason like an adult. We may take on adult hobbies and interests. We may even spend time looking at adult content on the internet. But deep down, we all just kids. Am I saying that to be a good person, you can't fight on the internet? No, I am not setting the standard that high because I would be very hypocritical if I did so. Sometimes I love nothing better than to get into a good fight with someone who's dumb on the internet. But it's a good idea to save your fight for awful people. There's a lot of them on the internet, and some of them aren't even human. So if you need a punching bag, those exist. You don't need to target somebody who's doing their best and simply doesn't meet your idea of perfect. But let's get back to what controlling behavior looks like, especially in what we'd call the progressive, left-leaning, liberal, or safe spaces. Incidentally, there is nothing that terrifies me more than someone telling me that I am in a safe space, because if I am in a safe space, there's a 65% chance that I'm going to get my nose broken by a rambunctious lesbian. Because I am a man with a deep voice, and it does not matter how many dicks I have sucked. It doesn't matter what I say, and it doesn't matter how much I support trans rights or any other left-leaning, progressive, whatever cause. To her, I am the patriarchy, and that's all I will ever be to her, and today, she's gonna choose violence. That might sound like a slight exaggeration, but it's a lot slighter than you might think. Part of this is down to the fact that many progressive spaces are not class conscious. Now, sometimes there may be lip service, but ultimately it's hard enough to get people to understand basic anti-racist thought, basic feminist thought, basic queer theory, and a lot of the time people have tuned out by the time anyone eventually gets to how classism is the root of all racism, sexism, homophobia, and every other form of discrimination. And especially on social media, someone having more followers than you does not mean that they're oppressing you. It means you're attacking the thing that they've invested way more of their time into than you have in yours. And unfortunately, algorithms often reward this sort of behavior when done between creators, and so people will mimic this behavior even if they don't actually stand to benefit. So now, do I deal with this? Not really. I think part of it is the whole chicken aspect of it. Nobody hates Bugs Bunny, and this face allows me to kind of be like a sexy vampire novel romance interest, but without the sex appeal, or maybe with the sex appeal. But that's not the reason I picked it. But for a lot of people, because I don't necessarily look like the past people who've harmed them, they just assume the best about me as long as I'm still funny, which is really cool. Uh, really, the only experiences that I've had on since starting like TikTok, where anyone has private messaged me and wanting to tell me that I'm awful, came after I did a video that talked about personality disorders and how, while they may be their own unique struggle, trying to co-opt the language of disability and pretending that they can be accommodated for really does not make sense. Both people who did that took the time to write me and tell me how dumb I was and that I needed to do more research into personality disorders, and I pointed out that they had no idea how much research I had done, at which point they both got mad at me and blocked me. It was great. I smiled. But all of this is to say, whenever you find yourself wanting to demand that someone think or behave differently, it's a good idea to ask yourself why. You might have a good reason. You might even want to be protecting someone. But there is also a risk that it might be coming from a place where it's just, you want this. And so you think it's okay to expect that from other people. And if that's where it's coming from, maybe we don't feed that monster today. Anyway, if you like this video, feel free to leave a comment, like it, whatever. But also, please go to Steve's various socials and say something nice, something encouraging. If you really want to make a creator happy, it's a good idea when you're commenting or saying something to say what you liked. It can just be a sentence or a fragment of a sentence or whatever, but like pick something that you'd only know if you actually watch the video. And this is like good advice for just paying comments or paying compliments to anyone. If you can be just a little specific, you don't need to do a whole analysis of everything, but just saying something like, I liked this specific joke. I liked this point that you made. I liked this. And remember, there is a lot of power in just giving someone positive feedback without your thoughts about how they could be different. Sometimes people just being themselves is great.